I've seen also a triple yin yang where three entities are changing each other in a circle. This is a rotating tripole. The swastika is a very simplified representation of a rotational quadrupole of 4 poles, plus minus, rotating. We would see very soon that this is exactly the case. Some Russian experiments prove that the swastika is basically a representation of their quadrupolar anti-gravity drive. Another contactee report, UFO's contact from the planet Ayarga.
Star Wars. I mean Star Trek. Looks like some of the figures.
This is a creature that appeared from. On some of these things you may make a close in.
I'm full time on it.
Can you do it with a remote? Fascinating. And these are creatures that evolved from amphibians. Incredible swimmers, can swim 5 times as fast as we do. Have very sturdy skulls because there the G-force is 3 times as strong as ours, and the height of a deadly foe is just 60 centimeters. If they fall from more than 60 centimeters, they die. Here, a deadly foe is about 2 floors high. Well, one story, maybe 2 story, depends how. Anyway, incredible book. The contactee was an architect and an engineer by training, so he left brilliant drawings. I mean, he retained most of what he saw in one day holographic presentation aboard this alien craft that he was taken on from his boat in Holland. And what this guy described is a very detailed 3-dimensional cutout of their saucer craft, as big as Queen Mary. This is 300 yards diameter. Giant craft that they use to navigate the universe, but doesn't have superluminal velocity, so basically these are like flying cities. They would fly many generations in them, exploring different planets and stars. And the key component of this craft are these donuts, these rings on the periphery of the craft, these two and this triangular cavity. The triangular cavity in these two donuts. These two donuts are counter-rotating synchrotron rings. It's fascinating.
Do they have to rotate, or can they just send particles around?
No. What the guys figured out that instead of spinning the whole hull of the craft, instead of spinning brute mass, a lot of tonnage at slow RPMs, you can spin at high RPMs a very little mass and you would arrive at the same product. It's mass time RPMs. So instead of spinning the whole craft in a very inefficient drive, all the bearings would wear down, as was the case of the first German saucers. They would keep the craft stationary and they would spin few elementary particles in these two rings at near relativistic speed. So basically their weight is almost nothing, but the speed is almost everything, so they get the same effect. Again, we have spinning. If we can't spin the brute mass of the craft, we can spin a magnetic field like these electric motor. Well, it's a combination because the magnetic field spins, but also the mechanical part of the electric motor spins. There have been patents in Germany in the 30s for creation of a spinning magnetic field with a stationary non-spinning hardware. So if you go a step further, you don't even have to have an electric motor to create a spinning magnetic field. You would have some sections that would be turning on and off and on and off in a circle, and they would create a spinning magnetic field. I mean, this is technology that has been in the patent office since the 30s. Here the IR are spinning elementary particles. I heard another story, government contactee, that what they did was they got a big quartz crystal, a cylinder of a crystal, then they got a metal, a magnet wire of a magnetic material, and they wound some electric conductor over this magnetic long bendable wire, whatever, like a thin sausage. They wound the electric conductor around it and they obtain an electromagnet. Then this pliable electromagnet was wound around this big quartz crystal, which resembles, by the way, a millstone. This is probably where the story of that millstone in the Mahabharata legend came from, or maybe there are countless other physical ways to create such a millstone resembling saucer drive. But anyway, when the magnetic, basically it's kind of a linear magnet, this magnetic wire is wound around the quartz crystal and then we have the current over it, it would help all the electrons and maybe even the nuclear particles inside to orient themselves and start spinning along the vertical axis, because if they are oriented in all chaotic different directions, it cancels all these chaotic directions of spinning. They cancel each other and the net effect is zero. So that's why things weight on the planet. Otherwise, if they didn't cancel anything, they wouldn't weight anything and they would fly away from the planet. Whoever created the world thought that, well, we have to keep the buggers on the planet. If they start floating freely in space, we would lose them. So that's why in normal crystal objects, all these spins, all these little rotations of electrons and nuclear particles and everything are oriented chaotically in every direction. But if we can reorient them in the same vertical direction, vertical, then we obtain what what the Ayargans did with their drive. They were spinning few elementary particles in a synchrotron ring in the quartz crystal. They don't inject, the electrons are already there in the crystalline lattice of the quartz crystal. They just have to reorient them and to spin them in a desired direction. So you can spin the particles along a giant loop around the craft, or you can spin the particles, many particles, along the nuclei of the atoms. I mean, the universe is so boundless, and there are so many ways, different ways of producing anti-gravity. I repeat, the Pleiadians discovered 1600 basic modes of anti-gravity propulsion in their wanderings through the universe, and they have on their computers identified 1,800,000 civilizations. And among them they have 1600 basic different propulsion modes. Here in this lecture we will touch upon probably 20 or 30. So this is a drawing of the Ayargan drive, the synchrotrons, the blue one spinning clockwise and the red one spinning anti-clockwise. A Russian contactee, a colonel from the Red Army, was told by his aliens after they gave him a joyride in their craft that, oh, it's very easy to produce anti-gravity. It's a spinning nuclear reactor. You have a big nuclear reactor along a very powerful shaft spinning around, and by lowering or pulling out of the control rods, you regulate the anti-gravity force of the drive. The reactor is spun around by solar energy, and it spins constantly, probably along ideal bearings that don't wear and tear and the RPMs don't die down. So by pulling out the rods, the saucer rises. By dropping down the rods, the saucer lands. And there is a smaller second nuclear reactor perpendicular to the first one that would push in this direction so that the saucer will fly horizontally parallel to the surface of the planet. Another case of rotation. A third contactee case, the UMO craft, a contact in Spain, talks again about some electromagnetic cavities along the periphery of the craft, a donut-shaped electromagnetic cavity. They don't give much details, but I wouldn't be amazed that this is a system very similar to the Ayargan system of counter-rotating, tuned beams of elementary particles. Go Greece, the government party line contacts with a politically correct little grave. They have, these are iron drive craft, because when they land, they sinter and they bake the ground so that no grass can live, can grow there for more than a year. The electromagnetic drives not only do not bake and sinter anything, but crops continue to grow without even developing a burn on them. They just bend horizontal and start growing horizontal. So even in the iron drives, we see that the drive has some circle to it. Whether this is a condenser plate coupled, this is not a light, this is the drive system. This ring and the thing creates a very powerful light. It may also be an electrostatic condenser type anti-gravity, but we will not go. I'll go over these in the book that I'm finishing right now. I mean, there's so much about anti-gravity drives. One can easily write 1,000-page monograph just going briefly over them. When these iron drive craft land, they burn and sinter the ground, and it remains here. Yeah. Sometimes they will produce ice in midsummer, 1 inch to 2 inch thick ice, due to condensation, rapid condensation of vapors, or due to creation of the ice out of the ether. Basically, the angel dust that falls off flying saucers is a byproduct of their saucer drive that creates objects out of thin air, out of the ether, the way the yogis can create gold objects or other things. The adepts, like Sai Baba, can create objects out of thin air.
One of the signatures of free energy machines is cooling things down quite a bit, and maybe that's a signature from a free energy type drive too.
Very good point. Cooling down may be a signature of a free energy type drive, as it is a signature of the free energy machines. Again, we have a Go Breeze craft, and we see the drive a circular shape. Here, this is a detail that nobody has observed so far. From Bud Hopkins' book, his first contractee case, the landing track, this is how his research started. He realized that, I mean, this is not a figment of the imagination. If you have a big spot of grass in your backyard that stays there for several years, what I discovered that nobody else has discovered, here on the photograph, there's another jet that goes in this direction. This is a direction tangential to this disk. My suspicion is that just before takeoff, they fired a shot of some energy in this direction and another one in that direction in order to spin the disk, in order to take off. Because this could have been in a radial fashion, it could have been in any other angle of all the other possible angles, which are quite many here. This is in a tangential direction. It could be a jet of energy that was used to spin the drive of the craft before takeoff. Another circle of an iron drive. After the contractee reports, there are a lot of inventor stories and reports about anti-gravity. And can we do the focus? Oh, here is my problem. And here in this research, the inventor created some spinning gyroscopic constructions, quite a complicated construction. Several gyros, baby gyros that would spin together, lifting the whole craft upward. Another academic report from Frank Close from the Rutherford Appleton Research Laboratory in England, which is something like Los Alamos here in this country. He talks a lot about gravity negation through rotation, and I can quote here: just as rotating electrical charges feel the magnetic forces, so will spinning masses experience magnetic anti-gravity.
What year was that written?
This is the Manchester Guardian, Friday, March the 14th, 1964. I got in the library. So again, we have a connection between anti-gravity and rotation. Actually, electromagnetic drive. Recently, in an article about the American Olympic Committee for discus throwing, there was a little miniature fact there that when they removed the weight of the discus from the center and concentrated it on the periphery, that increased greatly the throw length of the discus. When a discus is thrown, it spins. By moving the mass from the center to the periphery, we do not increase the radius, but we increase the flywheel momentum. A flywheel of a car is made such that it is edge heavy and center light. It's thin in the center and all the mass is concentrated in the edge in order to accumulate more energy. If a flywheel is built in this way, it accumulates a lot more energy than if the mass is concentrated in the center. So, by working on one of the variables of the anti-gravity formula, they were able, without realizing it, to increase the throw distance of the discus quite substantially, 40% or something. I heard that in the Second World War there was a frisbee-type grenade that they were throwing, spinning, and that would fly a lot longer than a normal grenade. A guy who was a general in the Marine general, I think, from the Marines, told me about this grenade, and I'm trying to get it from the Quantico,
Virginia.
Quantico, Virginia. They have a big marine museum there. How to build a flying saucer. This is more of a tabloid and popular nature, but in this book they discover a very interesting gyroscope experiment. Let's forget about this gyro and think about this one here. The spinning top, if it is spun along a horizontal axis, it spins, supported on both ends. But if you remove one of the support, instead of falling down, it does not fall. It starts processing like this, without falling. Basically, it hangs on its end. Now, if we introduce force through the shaft by force processing it, it will start raising up. If we apply a brake on the shaft and slow the speed of rotation, it would fall down. We can literally make it go up and down by increasing the speed or decreasing it. So if we have two of them here, they will do the same. They will go up and down, if we increase the speed or not. We can put an electric motor here and a third one here, and basically make quite a funny looking design. But if this thing is glued here tight, because they cannot go upward, they cannot bend the shafts, but they still want to go upward, they would pull the whole contraption out, and we would have the Munchausen effect. You can pull yourself up literally by the hair without stepping on any other outside support. Just you do quick spinning with your hands and you start rising vertically. This is what anti-gravity is. So this simple physics experiment, and by the way, if you look carefully in physics textbooks, all experiments with gyroscopes have been quietly removed. A recent Scientific American booklet on rotation, and I love their incredible